everyone, my name is Sarah Cahill and welcome back to my channel. It has been almost 9 weeks since I took part in the 24-hour novel challenge where I wrote 45,000 words in, I think it was 21 hours total of physically writing over the 17th and 18th of June. The time has come to reread the novel that I wrote during that time to see whether or not I feel it's worth me continuing on with full-on rewrites and revisions, or whether it is going to be put away nicely on a shelf with the rest of my shelved novels, which I still love dearly, but don't have the passion quite at this moment to work on making them better. The way that I'm going to pinpoint whether or not I'm going to continue working on this for now or whether I'm going to shelve it is a very simple: how easy do I think it's going to be to get this first draft into a viable second draft with the least amount of work? Do I feel confident that I can change this story enough to make it a decent story? Will I reread this book and feel excited about this book and what I have written? If I don't feel that initial excitement as I reread, it's going to get shelved for me to reread again. Or will I feel the urge in a few months' time and go, this is such a cool story, I still don't feel that excited to work on it though, so it's gonna, as I've been doing with all the rest of my work. So what I'm gonna do is, this is gonna be very boring for you, I do apologize. I'm just going to be reading and making notes. I don't know what type of notes I'm going to be making. I know there's a few things that I have in my head from what I remember writing, or at least regards to the plot, that I know I'm going to need to add in order for things to make sense. I will be noting those down as I get to those specific places as well. And I'm just gonna make notes on things that I feel like I need to make notes on. Maybe they'll be negative, maybe something will be a bit positive. Maybe it will be like, oh, there's good foreshadowing in this scene, or oh, is this scene going too quickly, or do things not make sense, or, you know, little things like that. Just so I have a general vibe of how well I've done everything. I need to keep talking about what I'm doing, to be fair. I just need to actually get on and do it. I'm gonna get some tea first though, because I can't function without tea, and then we shall get started. Okay, I've just finished rereading the first scene. What immediately jumped out at me was the opening sentence, which I feel like I liked when I first wrote it. I feel like I don't quite like it now. May was always one step on the edge of normal. I sort of get what I was trying to say. I don't think I have worded it in quite the right way. A few bits I liked in this. I like the ambience that I added to the beginning of the scene. She's in a coffee shop. I feel like at the moment, and the only reason I'm feeling this is because I have had this criticism of some of my characters who are a little bit similar to May in the past. Is she a bit too negative? Is she not likable enough when we first meet her? And, you know, maybe it's the situation in which we are meeting her and that's why she's acting so negative, but that's something I'm going to need to look out for as we go on before we get to the main part. And there's a little bit of a very out of place moment where I start not introducing magic, but where I add a little bit of magic into it. I think I did it for a little bit of intrigue for the reader. That's not just them, you know, watching this girl at her job in a coffee shop that happens to be busy and she's being pissy towards customers. But it feels like it's there as a sentence and it feels very out of place, which doesn't quite sit right. So either I don't need to have that little intro to magic in it there, or I need to make it a bit more subtle. so it doesn't like stick out like a sore thumb, basically. But I'm happy with the first scene. Let's move on to the rest, and I'll come back once I have reached the inciting incident. Just finished the inciting incident, and then I've done the scene after it as well. It's okay. What are my notes? Again, not even again, the introduction to magic here in the inciting incident chapter, I think fits a lot better than it did originally in the first scene. It makes more sense for that major introduction to be here, but then I think, is that too late in the story to add that element of magic without having hints to it before? And then how do I hint at it without being over the top in your face about it? Which, fine line to walk, but we'll see what I can do. There's a lack of tension, I think, in the scene. I feel like I want it to be there, or I intended for there to be some sort of tension, but I'm not feeling it, and I'm not sure where it's supposed to be coming from. I guess it's supposed to be coming from the fact that she's in this strange place and there's these strange people here. But during this entire inciting incident couple of scenes, she's very much, this is a really stupid idea. But she's not going to let it bother her, and she's going to continue doing what she's doing. And it's fine for her to think that, but there's not enough to push her into ignoring the fact she knows how stupid it is to be going to this location. She doesn't know anyone there, and there's strange people, and she's sneaking out in the middle of the night. There's not enough to push her, I think. And then with the actual inciting incident, which is the audition, she completes it very, very easily. But I can't think of another way that she can complete this task. So I need to figure out a way that explains why it's so easy to make it make more sense. Which is fine, I'm sure I can think of something. It's very slow at the moment. Like, very slow. Like, things which should be interesting are happening, but it's just very slow, I think, because of the magic aspect, which sounds weird, I know. But the thing I had, which was part of the plot, is May is in this magical competition, and she can't let on the fact that she has no magic, because if people find out that she has no magic, she's going to be killed. So obviously when I was doing it, I needed to create events where an excessive show of magic is not necessary in order to complete the event. So it doesn't make for a very interesting event to read, because we're following May and nothing exciting is happening. I feel like a lot of the other tasks are going to be very similar in that respect. So trying to figure out how to make those tasks more interesting without having outright action is going to be very, very difficult to do. There needs to be something, and again, I think this is going to be a trend as I go forward. Something else needs to be happening, because it's not interesting in the way magic should be interesting. That is a lot of work. I'm still happy with the magic system I created though, so at least there's that. Okay, I've long since given up making proper notes. I've had a few. Slow is a big one. I need more danger involved to make things more interesting. It's weird because I feel like everything is happening super quickly, but this is only 45,000 words long. So in the sense of it being a 45,000 word book, I know that if it was stretched out to a proper full-length novel, these things would be in the correct places. So it's just trying to get my head around those two pieces of knowledge. It feels fast, but it feels like two different stories at the moment as well, because the first half of the book focuses on one thing and then the second half of the book focuses more on the second thing. It feels like it's two different stories rather than one cohesive story where everything is definitely linked to each other. And that is how I've outlined it, really. So that's my own fault. That is how I ended up outlining it. I'm looking forward to rereading the third act because I remember, and I'm going to disappoint myself when I say this, I remember liking what I'd done for the third act, and I remember thinking, this has a lot of tension, this has a lot of stakes, this is really good. And I'm like, I don't want to think that, because I want to go into reading it thinking, oh, I did such a good job, and then it to not be a good job, in fact, and I've disappointed myself. But we're all right. We are 5 scenes away from the third act, and then everything goes. I'm umming and ahhing about everything at the moment, but I do obviously need to take into account, you know, it is only 45,000 words. I did rush this, didn't really plan this out as well as I wanted to. But once I gather all my thoughts, we'll see whether or not I think I can continue working on it to do the story the justice it deserves. We'll see. Thing is happening all at once. It's all happening too fast, even for the third act. It's just this happens, then this happens, and then this is this information, and then this is this information, and I haven't explained any of it beforehand. And suddenly we have what everybody needs to do, but everyone knows what they need to do and decides what they need to do. And the aim of the book, we find out in the third act, in the middle of what is building up to be the climax. And no, I don't like that. There were a lot of things that she needed to have known, the main character needed to have known beforehand, which she's just finding out now. So we've got piles and piles of information going on, which we should not have. Lovely. The read through is done. I made just under 2 pages worth of notes. I stopped taking notes at scene 16. I think because I took notes for scene 16, I read a couple more scenes without taking any notes, lost my place, and then went, does it really matter? Do I need to take notes on specific scenes? I'm just getting the general gist of the book. And it is only 45,000 words long. And it is by far the worst first draft I have ever written, especially in length in regards to it being, or supposed to be, a YA. It is like the length of a middle grade. Let's think about the good parts in it. There's quite a good amount of foreshadowing for certain things that are going to happen within the story, plot twists that I have going on, which I really enjoyed reading. I like the characters I have written. I like the sort of friendship that I have written for them, although I do feel that May needs to be a bit more involved in that friendship. Again, we don't want to have her be too negative. I like the series of events that happen as we go into the third act, and I like how things are discovered, and I like how the plot twist happens. I enjoy how the third act and how the climax played out, despite it not being as, you know, detailed as I would like it to be. And that is the good. The bad, the negative, is mostly the interest in it, making the magical events more magical, more intriguing. Do I want to make them more dangerous? That would up the tension a bit. There's a lot of information that is learned at the back half of the book, which needs to maybe be learned a bit more after midpoint before we get to Act 3, rather than finding it all out in Act 3. There's a couple of characters I need to put more into the story who are there for a couple of times, but it would make sense to see them more tension, more stakes in regarding the fact that she's trying to hide the fact she does not have magic. That aspect of the plot gets sort of left behind. Her own motivations need improving a bit, and I'm struggling to see her character arc. I know that she had one. I feel her character arc has something to do with keeping to herself and not wanting friends because she feels that they're a waste of time, to having friends at the end of it. I think it's something to do with that, but it has nothing to do with the actual stakes of the book or the plot of the book or her motives within the book. So maybe need to readjust and focus on that a little bit more. And there's a lot of aspects which I know in my head I wanted to put into the book. Reasons for something, explanations for certain things, which I have either not put in there whatsoever. Certain things which need explaining in more detail or need a bigger discovery about. And then just trying to fit together these two very different plot points and making them fit together better than they currently are, and trying to make it sound like it is not just two different stories mushed together with a very vague plot point connecting the two. There's no resolution for May in regards to her original point of trying to find her brother. There's absolutely no resolution. I don't quite feel like that is a bad thing, but also it's not, this is supposed to be a standalone. It's not, I don't know, it just feels weird that there is not a resolution to her brother's disappearance, which is the reason she went and did this in the first place. I'm a bit apathetic about it all, to be fair. I'm like, oh, that's what I wrote, okay. I liked certain parts of it and other parts of it I did not enjoy because of the lack of planning and because of the lack of detail I put into it. Maybe if this was like a full 90,000 word draft I had done as a first draft with sort of more everything in there, I'd be a bit more excited about it. At the moment it's like, it is a lot of work to fix, to make better, and am I bothered to do the work? I'm still very proud that I wrote this in 21 hours. And for 21 hours and just a really rushed, terrible fast draft, it's a decent story. It is a bit more work than I anticipated. So I am probably going to shelve the novel instead of working on it straight away. I think is the best thing to do. And it will be something that I come back to eventually, you know, but it's not pushing its way to the forefront focus of my mind now. And if it's not doing it now after I've just reread it, I'm not going to be able to force myself to do it. So that was me rereading my 24-hour novel challenge. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how you go about doing your first rereads of your first drafts, and I'll see you in my next video. Good thoughts and happy writing.